They called her a defect, a waste of space. For 22 years, Erin Aaron was the pack's ultimate joke, the wolfless omega who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as her fated mate, Alpha Gabriel. But today, the Silver Moon Council made a fatal mistake. Driven by the lies of a jealous rival, they dragged Erin to the execution grounds, demanding she force a shift that everyone claimed would kill her. They wanted to expose a fraud, but they were about to wake a legend. Because when her bones finally cracked and the fur broke through, it wasn't a weak runt that emerged. It was the one creature the entire werewolf world feared enough to bow down to. And now, it was too late to beg for mercy. The cell floor was freezing, seeping a bone-deep chill into Erin's legs. But the cold was nothing compared to the numbness in her chest. She sat huddled in the corner of the Silver Moon Pack's dungeon, her wrists rubbed raw by silver cuffs. "You really did it this time, Erin," a voice sneered from the other side of the bars. Erin didn't look up. She knew that voice. It belonged to Jessica Thorne, the beta female who had made Erin's life a living hell since kindergarten. And, more importantly, the woman currently warming the bed of Alpha Gabriel, Erin's fated mate. "I didn't steal the lunar stone, Jessica," Erin whispered, her voice hoarse from days of silence. "You know I didn't," Jessica laughed, the sound sharp and grating. She adjusted the expensive silk scarf around her neck, a gift, no doubt, from Gabriel. "Does it matter? The council found the stone in your mattress. Elder Thomas has already signed the warrant. You're being tried for treason and fraud." Erin finally looked up, her green eyes dull and tired. "Fraud?" Claiming to be a wolf, Jessica smirked, leaning closer to the bars, her perfume overpowering the scent of mold and damp earth. "We all know you're just a human with a recessive gene, a genetic dead end. But you insist you can feel your wolf. Today, the council is going to make you prove it. And when you can't shift, well, the penalty for a human infiltrating packlands is death." Erin's heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't human. She knew she wasn't. She could feel her, a dormant, quiet presence deep in her soul. A presence that was waiting for something. But she had never shifted. Not at 16, not at 18, and not now, at 22. "Gabriel won't let them kill me," Erin said, though her voice lacked conviction. Jessica's smile widened, cruel and triumphant. "Oh, honey, who do you think signed the transfer order to bring you to the tribunal?" The sound of heavy boots echoing down the stone corridor cut off Erin's reply. Two large enforcers, men Erin had grown up with, stopped at the cell door. One of them, a warrior named Marcus, refused to meet her eyes. "Time to go, Erin," Marcus grunted. "The Alpha is waiting." The walk to the tribunal grounds felt like a funeral procession. The entire pack had gathered in the ancient stone amphitheater. Hundreds of faces, people she had cooked for, cleaned for, and cared for, stared at her with mixtures of disgust and morbid curiosity. In the center of the arena stood the high table. Elder Thomas, a man with a beard as white as snow and a heart as black as coal, sat in the center. To his right was High Priestess Martha. And to his left, sitting on the velvet-lined Alpha throne, was Gabriel Sterling. He looked devastated. His dark hair was messy, his jaw set in a hard line. But he didn't look at Erin. He looked at the ground. "He believes them," Erin realized, the final crack forming in her heart. "My mate thinks I'm a thief and a liar." Marcus shoved Erin forward. She stumbled, her knees hitting the gravel of the arena floor. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd, quickly silenced by a wave of Elder Thomas's hand. "Erin, Erin." The elder's voice boomed, amplified by the acoustics of the amphitheater. "You stand accused of the theft of the sacred lunar stone and of the high crime of lineage fraud. How do you plead?" Erin struggled to her feet, the chains weighing her down. She looked directly at Gabriel. "I am innocent. I am a wolf of this pack, and I did not touch the stone." "Lies!" Jessica Thorne shouted from the front row, standing up theatrically. "I saw her near the vault, and we all know she has no wolf. She's been leeching off our resources for years, pretending to be one of us." "Silence!" Elder Thomas barked, though he looked pleased by the outburst. He turned his cold gaze back to Erin. "The evidence of the theft is damning. The stone was found in your possession. However, the charge of fraud is more serious. If you are human, your presence here violates the ancient treaty." "I am not human," Erin said, her voice shaking but defiant. "Then prove it," High Priestess Martha said, her voice like dry parchment. "Shift, here, now," the crowd murmured. Everyone knew that shifting under duress without the moon's aid was difficult for even a seasoned warrior. For a latent wolf like Erin, it was physically agonizing. I can't," Erin admitted. "My wolf she's quiet. She hasn't emerged yet." "Because she doesn't exist!" Jessica screamed again. Elder Thomas leaned back. "We have a solution for that. We have acquired a serum, a synthetic moondraft. It forces the wolf to the surface." Erin's blood ran cold. The moondraft was illegal. It was torture. It broke bones and tore muscles to force a biological reaction. If she was human, the serum would stop her heart instantly. If she was a wolf, the pain would be unbearable. "Gabriel," Erin pleaded, turning to him. "Please, that serum is banned. You can't let them do this." Gabriel's hand gripped the armrest of his throne so hard the wood splintered. He looked up, his eyes flashing gold, then fading back to brown. He looked at Jessica, who gave him a subtle, warning look, reminding him of the evidence she had concocted. "The pack law is clear, Erin," Gabriel said, his voice void of emotion. "If you are a wolf, you will survive. If you are not, then justice is served." The betrayal hit her harder than any physical blow. He wasn't just rejecting her. He was sentencing her to torture. "Bring the serum," Elder Thomas commanded. Dr. Eris, the pack doctor, stepped forward holding a syringe filled with a glowing, violent purple liquid. He looked apologetic, mouthing a silent "I'm sorry," before the enforcers grabbed Erin's arms, holding her still. "No! No, please!" Erin screamed, thrashing against the iron grip of the guards. The needle pierced her neck. Fire! That was the only word for it. Liquid fire poured into her veins, racing straight to her heart. Erin collapsed to the gravel, screaming a sound that tore her throat raw. It felt like her skeleton was being pulverized by a sledgehammer. The crowd went silent. The only sound in the massive arena was Erin's agonizing screams and the heavy rain that had begun to fall, mixing with the dirt on her face. "She's dying!" someone shouted from the stands. "Stop it! She's human!" "Let the serum work!" Elder Thomas roared, leaning over the railing, his eyes wide with sadism. Erin curled into a ball, vomiting bile. Her skin felt like it was splitting open. But deep inside the pain, something else was happening. The quiet presence she had felt for years, the one she thought was weak, woke up. It didn't wake up gently. It woke up angry. "They dare?" The voice in her head wasn't a whisper. It was a thunderclap. Erin's back arched unnaturally. A loud crack echoed through the stadium as her spine snapped and realigned. Then another crack. Her shoulders, her hips. Gabriel stood up, horror dawning on his face. "Stop! Eris, give her the antidote. It's killing her." "It's too late, Alpha." Dr. Eris shouted back, backing away from the writhing form on the ground. Erin's scream shifted. It dropped an octave, deepening into a guttural growl that vibrated in the chests of everyone present. The rain poured harder. Steam began to rise from Erin's body. The chains on her wrists glowed red-hot, then shattered like glass. Jessica Thorne stepped back, her face losing all color. What is that?" From the muddy ground, Erin pushed herself up, but her hands were no longer hands. They were massive paws, covered in fur as white as starlight, tipped with obsidian claws. She continued to rise, and rise, and rise. Usually a female wolf was the size of a large dog. An alpha wolf was the size of a pony. The creature that stood up from the steam was the size of a draft horse. Its fur was blindingly white, glowing with a faint ethereal luminescence. Its eyes were not the yellow of a normal wolf, nor the red of an alpha. They were violet, the color of royalty, the color of the moon goddess herself. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the arena. "A white wolf," High Priestess Martha whispered, dropping her ceremonial staff. "The prophecy." The massive beast shook its coat, sending droplets of rain and mud flying. It turned its massive head toward the high table. It didn't growl. It simply stared. The aura rolling off it was so heavy, so suffocatingly powerful, that the enforcers closest to her instantly dropped to their knees, their own wolves forcing them into submission. Gabriel, the alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, fell out of his chair. His legs gave out. His wolf, usually dominant and proud, was whining in his head, forcing him down. "Submit. Submit to the queen." Jessica Thorne was frozen, shaking violently. The white wolf took one step forward. The ground shook. She opened her muzzle and let out a roar, not a howl, a roar that shattered the glass windows of the pack house overlooking the arena. Erin was not a defect. She was a lichen. And not just any lichen. She was the legendary White Luna, a sovereign born once every 1,000 years to judge the unworthy. And she had found the Silver Moon Pack very, very unworthy. The silence in the amphitheater was heavier than the granite seats surrounding them. The only sound was the incessant rain sizzling off Erin's steaming white fur. 52 heartbeats, 73 cents of pure, undiluted terror. For 22 years, Erin had known the scent of her own fear. It was acrid, metallic, and constant. But now her senses were flooded with the fear of the monsters who had tormented her. It was intoxicating. She didn't just see them bowing. She felt the crushing weight of her own aura forcing them down. The lichen inside her was ancient, a primal force that demanded absolute submission. She wasn't just a wolf. She was a judge. Erin took a slow, deliberate step toward the high table. The ground shuddered under her massive paw. Elder Thomas, the man who had gleefully ordered her torture moments ago, was pressed so flat against the muddy ground that he was practically eating dirt. His bladder had released, the sharp scent of urine mixing with the rain. High Priestess Martha was trembling so violently her teeth chattered audibly, clutching her holy symbol as if it could protect her from a living deity. Erin ignored them. Her violet eyes, glowing like twin amethysts in the gloom, locked onto the figure huddled at the base of the Alpha throne. Gabriel. Her fated mate, the man who had promised to protect her when they were children, only to cast her aside for a cheap imitation like Jessica when he became Alpha. Gabriel was on his knees, his hands splayed in the mud. He craned his neck upward, fighting the immense pressure just to look at her. His eyes were wide, filled with a chaotic mix of horror, awe, and a dawning, sickening regret. "Erin?" His voice whispered in her mind through the mate bond, a bond he had neglected for years. It was weak, frantic. "Erin? Is that you? Goddess, you're magnificent." The white lichen curled her black lips back, revealing fangs the size of daggers. A low rumble started in her massive chest. It wasn't a growl. It was a vibration that rattled the teeth of everyone present. "Did I pass your test, Alpha Sterling?" Her telepathic voice wasn't the quiet whisper of the girl they knew. It was a booming resonance that echoed in the minds of every single pack member, sharp and cold as glacial ice. Gabriel flinched as if struck physically. "Erin, please. I didn't know. They told me you were a fraud. I had to uphold the law. Forgive me." "Mate, please." "Mate?" Erin laughed. The sound coming from the massive beast was terrifying, a series of sharp barking huffs that sounded like grinding rocks. She stalked closer, lowering her massive head until her muzzle was inches from Gabriel's face. Her hot breath, smelling of ozone and ancient forests, blew back his rain-soaked hair. She could hear his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "You watched them pump poison into my veins," she projected, showing him the memory of the searing pain. "You sat on your throne and held the hand of the whore who framed me while I screamed for mercy, and you did nothing." "It wasn't me!" Jessica Thorne suddenly shrieked from behind Gabriel. The pressure had cracked her. She scrambled backward in the mud, pointing a shaking finger at Elder Thomas. "It was him, Thomas and Martha. They wanted your bloodline gone because they knew what you were. I just wanted Gabriel. They made me plant the stone." The confession hung in the air. Erin didn't even blink. She just shifted her violet gaze to Jessica. The beta female froze, realizing she had just drawn the attention of a predator she couldn't fathom. "Silence. Parasite." Erin commanded. Jessica's jaw snapped shut against her will, the lichen command overriding her motor functions. Erin turned her attention back to Gabriel. His eyes were filling with tears, mixing with the rain. He looked pathetic. "I can fix this," Gabriel begged frantically through the link. "Erin, now that we know, you are my true Luna. We can rule together. Jessica means nothing. You are the queen we needed. Please, accept me." He leaned forward, baring his neck in the ultimate sign of submission to a mate, offering her control. Erin stared at his exposed throat. It would be so easy to rip it out. The lichen wanted blood. It wanted vengeance for years of neglect. But death was too easy for Gabriel Sterling. Erin drew herself up to her full, towering height. She tilted her head back toward the stormy sky and let out another roar that shook the foundations of the arena. Then she looked down at Gabriel and spoke the words that severed the final tie between them. "I, Erin Aaron, the White Luna, daughter of the ancient blood, reject you, Gabriel Sterling of the Silver Moon Pack. You are unfit to lead. You are unfit to breathe the same air as me. And you are certainly unfit to be my mate. The bond is broken." A blinding flash of violet lightning struck the center of the arena, hitting the ground between them. Gabriel screamed, clutching his chest as the fated mate bond, the most sacred connection a wolf could have, was violently torn out of his soul by her superior power. He collapsed face first into the mud, gasping for air, a broken man. Erin felt a searing pain in her own chest, but it was quickly replaced by a profound, glorious sense of freedom. She was free of him. She was free of them all. But she wasn't done with them yet. Before the pack could process the catastrophic rejection they had just witnessed, a new sound cut through the storm, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of heavy rotor blades. Floodlights from above suddenly illuminated the rain-soaked arena, blinding in their intensity. 3 massive, black military-grade helicopters descended from the clouds like birds of prey. They bore no pack crest, only a stylized golden crown insignia on the tailboom, the Royal Guard. The Silver Moon Pack members, still terrified of Erin, now found a new reason to panic. The Royal Council rarely intervened in local pack affairs unless a capital crime against the werewolf species had been committed. The helicopters landed outside the arena walls, and dozens of elite enforcement warriors clad in black tactical gear swarmed through the archways. They carried assault rifles loaded with silver nitrate rounds. They didn't move like normal pack warriors, they moved like executioners. They immediately surrounded the arena, their weapons trained not on Erin but inward, on the Silver Moon members. A final, sleek black SUV tore through the gates, skidding to a halt near the high table. The back door opened, and a man stepped out. The air in the arena changed instantly. If Erin's aura was a crushing weight, this man's aura was a vacuum. It sucked the oxygen out of the atmosphere, leaving everyone gasping. It was Nikolai Draven, the Alphaking, the ruler of all werewolf kind on the continent. He was tall, taller even than Gabriel, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of a kingdom. He wore an impeccably tailored, dark Italian suit that seemed impervious to the rain. His hair was the color of midnight, and his eyes were a startling, predatory steel gray that missed nothing. He didn't look at the cowering elders. He didn't look at the broken alpha sobbing in the mud. His gaze went straight to the massive white lichen towering in the center of the arena. King Nikolai didn't bow. He didn't flinch. He just walked toward her, his polished shoes crunching on the wet gravel. His guards parted like the Red Sea to let him through. He stopped 10 feet from Erin, tilting his head back to look up into her violet eyes. A slow, terrifyingly charismatic smile spread across his face. "Well," Nikolai said, his voice a smooth baritone that carried effortlessly over the rain. "My sensors picked up an energy discharge equal to a small nuclear event in this territory. I was expecting a rogue uprising. Instead, I find a myth." He placed a hand over his heart and offered a shallow, respectful bow. The bow of an equal, not a subordinate. "Greetings, White Luna. It has been 5 centuries since one of your bloodline graced this earth," Erin observed him. Her lichen instincts, which despised everyone else in the arena, were strangely quiet around him. He was powerful, dangerous, but not an enemy, not yet. "King Nikolai," she acknowledged, her telepathic voice cooler now, less enraged. "You seem to be having a disagreement with your host pack," Nikolai noted dryly, glancing sideways at Gabriel, who was still writhing in the mud from the rejection pain. "They tried to execute me for being human. They used the violet serum." Nikolai's steel-gray eyes instantly hardened into chips of ice. The playful demeanor evaporated. He turned slowly to face the high table, where Elder Thomas was feebly trying to crawl away. "Arrest them," Nikolai said quietly to his guards. Instantly, 4 royal guards hoisted Elder Thomas and High Priestess Martha off the ground. They screamed as silver cuffs were slapped onto their wrists. Another 2 guards grabbed Jessica Thorne, who was hyperventilating. Nikolai walked over to where Gabriel lay. He looked down at the fallen alpha with utter contempt. "Gabriel Sterling," Nikolai said coldly, "you sanctioned the use of a Class A forbidden torture device on a member of your own pack, a crime punishable by death, and in doing so you attempted to murder the rarest, most sacred creature in our history." "Wait, King, please," Gabriel choked out, trying to push himself up. "She was my mate. I didn't know." "She was your mate," Nikolai corrected, his voice lethal. "I felt the bond snap from the helicopter. You threw away a diamond to protect a piece of broken glass." Nikolai turned his back on Gabriel, dismissing him entirely. He walked back toward Erin. "My dear," Nikolai said, looking up at her massive form. "While your current form is breathtaking, it is tragically difficult to have a civilized conversation. If you would honor me by shifting back, I assure you, you are safe. No one here will harm you ever again. On my life as king." Erin hesitated. The lichen didn't want to give up control. It felt safe in this monstrous body, but the pain in her bones was starting to return. The aftermath of the serum and the forced shift. She was exhausted. She looked at Nikolai. His eyes held no fear, only a strange sort of intense curiosity and respect. Slowly, Erin closed her eyes. She willed the beast to recede. It was agony. Bones snapped back into place, fur retreated into skin, muscles shrank. She collapsed onto the wet gravel, naked, shivering, and covered in mud. Before she even hit the ground, Nikolai was there. He moved with blurring speed, catching her before she fell completely. He shrugged off his expensive suit jacket and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. It smelled of expensive cedarwood, oud, and raw, immense power. He pulled her to her feet, supporting her weight easily. Erin looked up at him, her green eyes exhausted, her hair plastered to her face. "You're safe," Nikolai whispered, his voice surprisingly gentle. He turned to face the arena, his arm around Erin's shoulders, presenting her not as a prisoner, but as an ally. "The Silver Moon Pack is hereby, under martial law," King Nikolai announced to the rain-soaked crowd. "Your alpha is stripped of his title pending a royal tribunal. The council elders are under arrest for high treason." He looked down at Erin, a dangerous glint in his gray eyes. "And as for the White Luna, she is coming with me." Consciousness returned to Erin not like a flood, but like a slow, terrifying tide. Her first sensation was the absence of pain. For the last 48 hours of her memory, her existence had been nothing but fire, the searing burn of the violet serum in her veins, the snapping of her bones as they rearranged themselves, and the crushing heartbreak of Gabriel's betrayal. She expected to wake up screaming. She expected the cold, damp stone of the dungeon floor and the smell of mildew and fear. Instead, she smelled lavender. Real, fresh lavender, mixed with the sharp tang of antiseptic and something else. Something deep, woodsy, and incredibly expensive. Like cedar and storm clouds. Erin forced her eyes open. The light was soft, filtered through heavy velvet curtains that blocked out the world. She wasn't in a cell. She was lying in a bed large enough to sleep a family of 4, buried under layers of down comforters and Egyptian cotton sheets that felt like cool water against her skin. Panic, sharp and immediate, spiked in her chest. Where am I? She bolted upright, her breath catching in her throat. Her hands flew to her neck, her fingers scrabbling frantically for the steel collar or the silver chains she was sure must be there. But there was nothing. Her skin was smooth, unmarked. Easy, Erin. Breathe. The voice came from the shadows in the corner of the room. It was a deep, baritone rumble that vibrated in the air, commanding yet strangely soothing. Erin scrambled backward, pressing her spine against the padded headboard, pulling the duvet up to her chin as a shield. Her eyes darted to the corner. King Nikolai Draven was sitting in a high-backed velvet armchair, legs crossed at the ankle. He looked different than the terrifying deity of vengeance she had seen in the rain-soaked arena. He had discarded his soaking wetsuit jacket. His tie was gone, and the top 2 buttons of his crisp white dress shirt were undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin and the edge of a black ink tattoo on his collarbone. He held a leather-bound book in one hand, but his eyes, those piercing, intelligent, steel-gray eyes, were fixed solely on her. "Where am I?" Erin rasped. Her voice sounded like she had swallowed broken glass. Nikolai closed the book with a soft thud and set it on the mahogany side table. He stood up, and the room suddenly felt smaller. He was massive, radiating a sheer, raw power that made the air feel heavy. "You are in the royal medical wing of the Sovereign Palace," Nikolai said, moving toward a crystal pitcher on a nearby cart. He poured a glass of water, his movements fluid and predatory, like a panther stalking through tall grass. "You have been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days? Erin whispered, horror dawning on her. "The pack, Gabriel, are currently guests of my dungeon," Nikolai finished, walking toward the bed. Erin flinched as he approached, her trauma overriding her logic. She squeezed her eyes shut, expecting a blow. She was an Omega, a defect. Alphas didn't bring her water, they brought her pain. She felt the mattress dip as he sat on the edge, keeping a respectful distance. "Open your eyes, Erin," he commanded softly. Slowly she obeyed. Nikolai was holding the glass out to her. His expression wasn't angry. It was intense, calculated. But beneath the steel, there was a flicker of something that looked dangerously like concern. "I am not going to hurt you," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "No one is ever going to hurt you again. Drink." Erin took the glass, her hands trembling so violently the water sloshed over the rim. Nikolai didn't pull away. He waited patiently as she drank, the cool liquid soothing the raw burns in her throat. When the glass was empty, he took it from her and set it aside. "My doctors were ready to pronounce you dead when we brought you in," Nikolai said, leaning back slightly, studying her. "The amount of serum they pumped into you, it should have liquefied your internal organs. A normal wolf would have died in minutes, an alpha would have lasted an hour." He paused, his gaze dropping to her hands, which were resting on the white sheets. "But you healed before their eyes. Your bones reset, your muscle fibers knit together. It was miraculous." Erin looked at her hands. They looked different, stronger. The constant tremors of weakness she had lived with for years were gone. She felt a hum under her skin, a low, constant vibration of power. "I'm a freak," she whispered, looking down. "That's why they tried to kill me. Elder Thomas said I was a fraud." "Is that what you think?" Nikolai asked. "That you're a freak?" "I was wolfless for 22 years, Erin said, tears pricking her eyes. "And when I finally shifted, I turned into a monster." I saw the fear in their eyes. Even Gabriel was terrified. "They weren't terrified because you were a monster, Erin," Nikolai corrected sharply. "They were terrified because they were looking at a god." Erin looked up, startled by the intensity in his tone. Nikolai leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, invading her personal space just enough to make her heart hammer against her ribs. "I had my archivists dig into the old bloodlines while you slept," he explained. "Your grandmother wasn't just a pack member of the Silver Moon. She was a seer from the northern mountains, a direct descendant of the first pack. The white wolf gene isn't a mutation, Erin. It is the purest, most ancient bloodline of our species. It has been dormant for 500 years. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face. He hesitated, then gently, agonizingly slowly, tucked a stray lock of silver hair behind her ear. His fingers brushed her skin, and a jolt of electricity, hot and undeniable, shot through her body. Erin gasped softly. Nikolai's pupils dilated. "You are a white Luna," he whispered, his voice rough. "Born to balance the scales, born to judge kings and alphas. Why do you think Elder Thomas wanted you dead? Why do you think he tried to brand you as human?" Erin shook her head, unable to speak. "Because he knew," Nikolai said, his eyes hardening into cold chips of flint. "He knew that if you ever ascended, his power would mean nothing. He wasn't executing a fraud, Erin. He was trying to assassinate a queen." The weight of his words crashed down on her. "A queen." "I'm not a queen," she denied, her voice shaking. "I'm just Erin, the kitchen girl. The Omega." "Not anymore," Nikolai said firmly. He stood up, breaking the magnetic tension between them. "The Omega died in that arena. The woman sitting before me is the highest-ranking female in the werewolf world, and today, the world needs to see her." "Today?" Erin asked, clutching the sheets. "The tribunal is set for noon," Nikolai stated, checking the heavy gold watch on his wrist. "The alphas from the 12 neighboring territories have arrived. They are all waiting to see the white wolf. They are waiting to see what you will do to the pack that betrayed you." He walked to the double doors of the room and opened them. "You have a choice, Erin. You can stay in this bed, hide under these covers, and let me handle them. I can execute them all for you quietly." He turned back to look at her, his silhouette framed by the light of the hallway. "Or," he challenged, a smirk playing on his lips, "you can get up. You can put on the armor my stylists have prepared. You can walk into that courtroom and look Gabriel Sterling in the eye, and you can take everything from him." Something sparked in Erin's chest. It was the same anger that had fueled her transformation in the rain. It was the lichen inside her, stretching its claws. Hide? After everything they did? After Jessica's laughter? After Gabriel's silence? No. Erin threw the covers off. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her legs were shaky, but they held. She stood up, wearing only the oversized silk shirt she had been dressed in, and lifted her chin. "I have nothing to wear," she said simply. Nikolai's smile widened, looking predatory and proud. He snapped his fingers. 5 attendants bustled into the room, pushing racks of clothing and carts of jewelry. They didn't look at her with pity. They looked at her with awe, bowing low as they passed. "Make her dangerous," Nikolai ordered the lead stylist. He paused at the door, looking back at Erin one last time. "I will be waiting outside. Do not keep your king waiting, little moon." The door clicked shut. The next hour was a blur of activity. Aaron was scrubbed, polished, and anointed with oils that smelled of jasmine and vengeance. When the lead stylist finally stepped back, Erin turned to the full-length gilded mirror in the corner. She stopped breathing. The girl in the mirror was gone. The woman staring back was a stranger. They had dressed her in a gown of midnight blue silk that seemed to absorb the light. It was backless, plunging dangerously low, held together by delicate silver chains that looked like constellations against her skin. The fabric pooled around her feet like dark water. Her hair, usually a messy knot, had been woven into an intricate crown of braids atop her head, threaded with sapphires that matched the deep blue of the dress. Her makeup was sharp, winged eyeliner that accentuated the unnatural violet flecks in her green eyes, and lips painted a deep, blood-red berry color. She didn't look soft. She didn't look kind. She looked regal. She looked cold. She looked like someone who could sentence a man to death without blinking. Erin ran a hand down the silk of her dress. "This is who I am now," she thought. "The Omega is dead." A knock came at the door. "Enter," she commanded. Her voice didn't shake this time. King Nikolai stepped in. He had changed into a formal black ceremonial suit, complete with a sash of gold and a sword at his hip. He stopped dead when he saw her. For a moment, the king was speechless. His eyes raked over her, from the crown of braids to the hem of her dress, dark desire flaring openly in his gaze. "Gods above," Nikolai breathed. He walked over to her, offering his arm. "If I wasn't a man of absolute control, Erin, we wouldn't make it to the courtroom." A blush heated Erin's cheeks, but she didn't look away. "We have a trial to attend, Your Majesty." "So we do," Nikolai murmured. He leaned in, his mouth brushing her ear. "Just remember one thing when we walk in there. You are not the victim today. You are the storm. And they are just the trees in your path." Erin placed her hand on his forearm. The heat of him was grounding. She felt the bond. Not the fated mate bond that Gabriel had shattered, but something new, something voluntary. A partnership forged in fire. "I'm ready," Erin said, her eyes flashing violet. "Then let us go," Nikolai said, leading her into the hallway. "It's time to rewrite history." The Royal Tribunal Hall was not built for comfort. It was built for intimidation. Carved entirely from black obsidian and veined with gold, the cavernous room seemed to swallow the light. The ceiling was a dome of glass, currently battered by the relentless storm outside, casting shifting, watery shadows across the floor. In the gallery, sitting on tiered rows of stone benches, sat the Alpha Council, the 12 most powerful pack leaders on the continent. They were silent, their expressions unreadable, waiting to witness history. In the center of the vast, cold floor, 4 figures knelt in the center of a glowing rune circle that dampened their wolf abilities. Elder Thomas, once the picture of arrogant authority, was now a trembling mess in shredded robes. High Priestess Martha prayed silently, her lips moving frantically, clutching a broken rosary. Jessica Thorne, the beauty queen of the Silver Moon Pack, looked haggard, her mascara streaked down her face like war paint gone wrong. And then there was Gabriel. The former alpha of the Silver Moon Pack knelt with his head bowed, his shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than Erin remembered. Without the arrogance of his title, without the sycophants feeding his ego, he was just a man who had made a catastrophic mistake. A thunderous boom echoed as the herald struck the floor with his golden staff. "All rise," the herald bellowed, his voice shaking the dust from the rafters. "For His Royal Majesty, King Nikolai Draven, and Her Grace, the White Luna, Erin Aaron." The double doors at the far end of the hall groaned open. The air in the room changed instantly. It wasn't just a shift in pressure, it was a shift in gravity. Nikolai entered first, wearing a ceremonial military uniform of pitch black, decorated with the golden cords of the royal house. He looked every inch the lethal predator he was known to be, but he did not walk to the center alone. He paused, turning slightly, and offered his arm. Aaron stepped into the light. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery of alphas. She was a vision of midnight and starlight. The blue silk gown flowed around her like liquid shadow, the silver chains against her skin catching the lightning flashes from the glass dome above. Her posture was perfect, her chin raised, her violet eyes sweeping the room with a terrifying calm. She didn't look at the crowd, she looked at the prisoners. As they walked down the long aisle toward the dual thrones set upon the dais, Erin could feel the eyes of the prisoners on her. She felt Jessica's envy, sharp and acidic. She felt Thomas's fear, tasting like copper. But when she passed Gabriel, she felt a wave of such intense longing and regret that she almost stumbled. Erin. His voice whispered in her mind, a ghost of the bond he had shattered. It was weak, desperate, trying to find a foothold in a wall that was now smooth and impenetrable. Erin ignored him. She ascended the stairs to the dais. Nikolai waited until she was seated on the throne to his right, a seat reserved for a queen, before he took his own. He leaned forward, his steel gray eyes scanning the room. "We are gathered here to address crimes of high treason, attempted regicide, and the violation of the sacred laws." Nikolai gestured to the royal prosecutor, but Erin raised her hand. "No," she said softly. The amplification runes embedded in the throne carried her voice to every corner of the hall without her needing to shout, "I will speak for myself." Nikolai sat back, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. He crossed his arms, signaling to the room, "This is her show." Erin stood up. She walked to the edge of the dais, looking down at the four people who had defined her life for 22 years. "Elder Thomas," Erin began. Her voice was cool, devoid of the anger she thought she would feel. "You falsified the birth records of my lineage. You labeled a direct descendant of the first pack as a defect." "Why?" Thomas looked up, his face pale and sweaty. It was for the stability of the pack. The white wolf is a myth of chaos. I couldn't let a wild variable challenge the alpha's authority. I did it for order." "Order?" Erin tilted her head. "You poisoned a young woman with a banned serum. You tortured an innocent. That is not order, Thomas. That is fear." She turned her gaze to Martha. "And you, High Priestess? You, who claimed to speak for the moon goddess? You watched as they dragged me to the execution grounds. Did the goddess tell you to do that?" Martha sobbed, pressing her forehead to the floor. "I was afraid," Thomas said. "He said you were an abomination." "The only abomination here is your cowardice," Erin stated flatly. "You are stripped of your titles. Your connection to the Packlands is severed. You will spend the rest of your lives in the silver mines of the East, digging for the very metal you used to bind me. You will never see the moon again." 2 guards stepped forward, hauling the screaming elders away. The sound of their chains dragging across the floor was the only noise in the room. Then Erin turned to Jessica. Jessica Thorne stopped crying. She looked up, her eyes red and puffy, but filled with a lingering, desperate defiance. "Go ahead," Jessica spat, her voice cracking. "Kill me. Get it over with. Everyone knows the monster always wins." "A monster?" Erin walked down the steps, stopping just outside the rune circle. "You stole the lunar stone. You planted it in my bed. You whispered lies in Gabriel's ear for years, telling him I was weak, telling him I was worthless." "Because you were," Jessica screamed, lunging forward but stopped by the invisible barrier of the circle. "You were a nobody, a kitchen rat. I am a beta. I am strong. I deserve to be Luna. I deserved him." "You wanted the title," Erin corrected, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You didn't love Gabriel. You loved the idea of being the alpha's mate. You loved the power," Erin signaled to the royal physician standing in the shadows. "I am not going to kill you, Jessica," Erin said. "Death is too quick, and you crave attention too much for martyrdom." She leaned in closer, I sentence you to the severing." A hush fell over the room. The alphas in the gallery murmured nervously. The severing was an ancient, agonizing ritual where a werewolf's spirit was surgically and magically detached from their human soul. "No." Jessica breathed, her eyes widening in true terror. "No, please, kill me. Don't take my wolf." "Your wolf deserves better than you," Aaron said coldly. "You will live out your days as a human. You will have no strength, no healing, no pack sense. You will be exiled to the human cities, where you will work, pay taxes, and grow old in silence. You will be entirely, utterly average." "No!" Jessica shrieked as the guards grabbed her. She thrashed wildly, screaming Gabriel's name, begging for help that wouldn't come. "Gabriel, help me! Don't let them take her!" Gabriel didn't even look at her. He was staring at Aaron. When the doors slammed shut on Jessica's screams, the silence that followed was heavy. Aaron turned to the final prisoner. Gabriel Sterling raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with dark circles. He looked at Aaron with a mixture of awe and devastation. "Aaron," he croaked. "Alpha Sterling," she responded, using his title with deliberate irony. "I didn't know," Gabriel pleaded, his voice breaking. He shifted on his knees, straining against the invisible bonds. "You have to believe me. Thomas, Jessica, they showed me evidence. They told me you were a spy. I thought I was protecting the pack." "You were protecting your reputation," Aaron said, taking a step closer. "You were ashamed of me, Gabriel, even before the trial. You were ashamed that your fated mate was an Omega without a shift. You wanted Jessica because she looked the part." "No," Gabriel shook his head frantically. "I fought it. For years I fought it. But the council, the pressure. Aaron, I am still your mate. The bond. I can feel it trying to reconnect. Fate doesn't make mistakes." He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "I love you. I've always loved you. Please, give me a chance to fix this. Let me serve you. I'll give up the alpha title. I'll be your enforcer, anything. Just don't shut me out." For a moment, the room held its breath. It was a compelling plea. The man on his knees, begging for forgiveness, invoking the sacred mate bond. Aaron looked at him. She searched her heart for that spark she had carried for him since childhood. She looked for the love that had made her endure the insults and the loneliness. She found nothing, just a hollow space where the pain used to be. "You broke the bond, Gabriel," Aaron said softly. "You didn't break it when you rejected me in the arena. You broke it the day you let them put chains on me and didn't stop them." "I was a fool," Gabriel cried. "I was a coward, but I can change." "You can," Aaron agreed, "but not with me." She turned her back on him, walking back toward the dais. "Nikolai!" Gabriel snarled, his tone shifting instantly from begging to aggression as he saw Aaron walk away. He glared at the king. "This is your doing! You're stealing her! You're manipulating her against her own mate." Nikolai stood up. The movement was lazy, but the threat was palpable. He descended the stairs slowly, unbuttoning his ceremonial jacket as if preparing for a brawl. He stopped in front of Gabriel. Nikolai was ahead, taller, broader, and radiated an alpha aura so potent that the alphas in the gallery instinctively bared their necks. "She is not yours," Nikolai said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in the floorboards. "You threw her away like garbage. You let her bleed in the mud. You lost the right to speak her name." Nikolai leaned down, his face inches from Gabriel's. "And if you ever disrespect my queen again, I will rip your throat out with my human teeth." He straightened up and turned to Aaron, extending his hand. "Your verdict, my Luna?" Aaron took his hand. His grip was warm, solid, and reassuring. She turned to face Gabriel one last time. "Gabriel Sterling," she announced, her voice ringing clear and true. "I strip you of your alpha status. The Silver Moon Pack is dissolved and will be absorbed into the royal territory. Gabriel slumped, the air leaving his lungs. Losing his pack was a death blow to his identity. "But I will not kill you," Aaron continued, "because you need to learn what it means to be powerless. I banish you to the northern wastelands." Gabriel's head snapped up. "The wastelands? That's a death sentence. It's rogue territory. There's no prey, no shelter." "Then you better learn to survive," Aaron said coldly. "You will live as a rogue. No pack will take you. No wolf will follow you. You will be alone. And every night, when the moon is high, you will remember that you held the universe in your hands and you traded it for a lie." "Aaron, please!" Gabriel screamed, struggling as 4 royal guards hauled him to his feet. "Don't do this! I love you! I love you!" "Take him," Nikolai ordered. Gabriel dragged his heels, fighting the guards, shouting her name until the heavy doors swallowed him and his desperate pleas. The silence that followed was absolute. Erin let out a breath she felt she had been holding for days. Her shoulders sagged slightly. It was done. The nightmare was over. She felt a hand on her waist. Nikolai was there, supporting her, his presence a shield against the exhaustion. "You did well," he whispered in her ear. Erin looked up at him. "I feel empty." "That is the space where the fear used to be," Nikolai said, brushing his thumb over her cheekbone. "Now, you get to fill it with whatever you want." He turned her to face the gallery of alphas. They were all standing now. One by one, the most powerful wolves on the continent bowed their heads. It wasn't a bow of politeness. It was a bow of deep, fearful respect. "Behold," Nikolai's voice boomed, "the White Luna, the guardian of the bloodlines." And he paused, looking down at Aaron with a question in his eyes. "A silent offer. Rule with me. Not as a guest, but as a partner." Aaron smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had smiled in years. It reached her violet eyes, making them glow. She squeezed his hand. "And the future queen of the Lycan Kingdom." Nikolai finished. The room erupted. Cheers, howls, and applause shook the glass dome. Aaron, the rejected Omega, the girl who slept in the dungeons, stood tall beside the king. She looked out at the sea of faces, knowing that her story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The pack that had tried to break her had only succeeded in forging her into steel. She leaned her head against Nikolai's shoulder, watching the storm clouds above finally break, revealing the bright full moon. "Ready for the next chapter?" Nikolai asked softly. Aaron watched the moon. "I was born ready." And there you have it. From a dungeon cell to the royal throne, Aaron just served the ultimate karma to everyone who doubted her. Jessica is human, the elders are in the mines, and Gabriel is freezing in the wastelands as a rogue. Do you think Gabriel will survive the winter, or will the rogues get him? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I really hope you enjoyed this full series. It took a lot of work to write, so if you liked it, please hit that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm so much. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. My mate rejected me for being blind until I opened my eyes and they were dragon slits. You don't want to miss that one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.